Hey, it's Trisha Mandis here, and I have a really exciting interview that I cannot wait to share with you today. Right now, we have Swann Adams with us. She is Trisha's Healthy Table scientific advisor, but she also has a very amazing story about how she changed her diet and her lifestyle to really take a hold of and improve her health. That will be really inspiring, and I cannot wait for Swann to share it with you today. So let's get started right there with your story. What happened 7 months ago that you would say is a big pivot and milestone in your life to where you are right now?
So back in May of this year, I went to my doctor for my usual every 6 month checkup, and she did some blood work, and it came back. And she did a new test this time. She hadn't done it in the past, and she did an HbA1c, and that's an indication of whether or not you were diabetic. And so it came back that I was very clearly diabetic at that point. So it was very much a big shock to me. I had just what they call gestational diabetes, when you have diabetes when you're pregnant. And I knew I was at higher risk. And of course, my weight was also contributing at that time. But I also thought I was, fairly active and ate as healthfully as I could. And so it was a big shock to me. And I had been on Weight Watchers off and on, and had
For how long?
Well, I reached my quote goal weight in my 20s, mid 20s, and had lost about 35 pounds to get to that goal weight. And then over the course of the next 20 years, I would gain, lose, but ultimately ended up gaining on the order of 100 pounds over the next 20 years. So really was not a success with Weight Watchers. And so when I thought about this diabetes diagnosis and what really needed to happen at that point, because I knew that my weight at that point, I guess I couldn't delude myself anymore that I was eating healthy and all that. I was diabetic, and so I needed to lose weight to get things under control.
And how old are you?
I'm 44. So that's extremely young to be diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, because it's a very debilitating disease over time. Of course, not immediately, but over time. And my kids are 8 and 9 years old. And I knew that I wanted to watch them get married, go to college, do all those things. And with the diabetes diagnosis hanging over my head, I was looking at having, going into the kind of what they call the vascular effects of diabetes in that time range. And, having trouble with my legs, amputations possible. Diabetes can also affect your eyes, so blindness, just to be really debilitated. And ultimately, I had a grandfather who died from many strokes from diabetes, type 2 diabetes. So I didn't want that to be me. It was the death sentence.
Yeah, and we talked about this before. The last, I think, 10 years of my grandfather's life was in a wheelchair with just one leg from type 2 diabetes. So it's a really, you can still live, but your quality of life drastically goes down. So imagine that was a really challenging and scary thing to hear. So then what did the doctor present to you as your options? And then what did you decide to do and why?
So, she basically told me at that time, you really need to lose weight. And I said, well, have been a Weight Watchers member and have yo-yo dieted with them. And I really have no faith that this would mean a realistic change. Yes, right. I would probably lose 10, 15 pounds, but I didn't feel like I could keep it off and maintain and keep going with that. Like, I seriously, to be really at my ideal weight, I need to lose 100 pounds.
Yeah.
So at that time she said, well, Jenny Craig has really worked for her. No, I'm sorry. It was Nutrisystems that she said had worked for her, that she just ordered her meals and it came, and that's what she did.
And it's a small, portion restricted.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I never will forget this. When she was describing it to me, she said to me, I eat my meal in the morning and I'm probably hungry in a couple hours later, but I just know that I can't eat anything until 12. And that's when I can have my lunch. And I was like, that was never going to work for me long term.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure it really worked for her long term, but that's her own story. So I, at that point, began looking around. I felt like I had to do something drastic. So the first thing, as a person who deals as a public health professional, I knew about gastric bypass surgery.
Swann is a scientific researcher at the University of South Carolina. She's a professor in the College of Nursing and the School of Public Health. So when it comes to the science, she knows her stuff.
And so, began looking at gastric bypass surgery at that point, and it was quite impressive in terms of the diabetes remission rates that they were able to achieve with that type of treatment. But of course, there's a myriad of side effects with that. It's incredibly invasive.
Do you know what some of the side effects of bypass surgery are?
One of the main thing is what's called dumping. So since you greatly shortened the the process of how the food is processed,
Right.
A lot of times it's processed very poorly at that point. So you basically have a form of chronic diarrhea your entire life.
Yeah, and then there can be nutrient absorption issues as well.
You can actually be malnourished.
Yeah.
Because your body's unable to absorb. And so those are, one side of the side effects, but then the other side is the relapse rate that people have with that. That you end up losing quite a bit of weight, but then just like I've experienced with Weight Watchers, it just all goes to hell in a handbasket to a certain degree, and you begin to gain it back. And I just didn't, I was considering that and had always been very opposed to it in the past, because I felt like that is so invasive. You've got to learn to change how you eat. But I felt like that was the only option available to me until I got to thinking about some of our interactions over the past year. And, you was instrumental for me in making me understand that plant-based does not mean steamed vegetables in the microwave.
All right, let's talk about that. When we met and how you came to wanting to work with me as a viable option for attempting to reverse your diabetes.
Yes. So you and I had, I guess, known each other for, at that time, I was diagnosed with diabetes in May, for approximately, I would say, maybe 9 months to a year at that point.
Working at the university.
Mm-hmm. That's right. And you had had a Christmas, we had our annual Christmas party. And at that time you had offered, and everybody had agreed, that we were going to all cook plant-based.
Right.
And it read, and thinking about it, I was like, oh, Trisha, all plant-based.
I'll go for support, but I'm going to want to
exactly. I was like, I really liked you. You were a nice person, and
you're sweet. Thanks for supporting me.
I was going to support you, but I was not excited at all about it. So I never will forget all the things that we made, and we were all cooking together. So it was that was fun in and of itself. But then the stuff that we made was a fettuccine alfredo, I think, with broccoli, mashed potatoes and gravy. I made a hummus. I made a killer hummus.
Yeah, yours was the best. But these things weren't made with butter and cream. Like our Alfredo sauce was cashew based.
Right.
And the mashed potatoes had tahini in them.
Exactly.
Right.
And we had a full spread. And I remember first of all, the first couple of bites that I took of that fettuccine alfredo, I thought, oh gosh, this is steamed vegetables in the microwave, remember? And I was like, it's one of those things where you're almost a little kid. You're like, smell it first, and it smelled good. So anyway, I tried it, and I was like, whoa, this is delicious. This almost tastes like the real thing. So I began to eat more.
Right.
And then I went back for seconds. I mean, I had a big old plate, let me just tell you.
Right.
And came away like, I'm so full. And I never thought I could achieve that on plant-based eating.
So then what did that make you think then after you received your diabetes diagnosis? So
at that point, I remember contacting you. I'm considering gastric bypass surgery, but it's so invasive. I'm not excited about it. What do you think plant-based could offer me?
Yeah.
And so you sent me a couple of studies, and then I actually also did my own research into lit reviews and research into it, and was pretty astounded by what I saw research-wise. And the research was showing similar remission rates to what you could get with gastric bypass surgery. But of course, you didn't have any of the side effects.
Right.
And, they had compared a plant-based diet to the American Diabetics Association recommended diet at the time, and actually had seen better long-term maintenance with the plant-based group than they did with the vegan group. So, I felt like, hey, now, this is something that I could probably live with. because of my experience with what you had shared with me, like with recipe wise and what was available to eat. And then the science was behind it to show me that this is not a fad. It's something that's shown to scientifically be proven to help improve diabetes and put people into remission.
And you and I are the same in that we love to eat food, and we love to eat a lot of food. And that is not just important to our happiness, but also important for us to be able to do a diet or just live every single day. Right. So, in Eating with Sway was part of the appeal that you didn't have to portion restrict and calorie count, or there's not even you don't even count carbohydrates.
Right.
Doing
exactly.
This. Yeah.
Exactly.
So you full force adopted a whole foods plant-based diet. When you have type 2 diabetes or heart disease, it's more important that you eat very low fat.
Right.
So the recommendation was 10% of calories coming from fat, all whole plant foods. If you don't have severe heart disease or type 2 diabetes, you don't have to restrict fat that much on a plant-based diet, but that's part of understanding how to do a plant-based diet right. And we've talked about this before. There's so many ways to do it wrong and eat vegan incorrectly type thing, but you did the diet right. You learned how to do it right. I came over. We did a very intensive weekend together, training. We talked about the science. We talked about the actual recommendations and precisely what you need to do. We did a cooking demo. We did nutrition labels. We did a grocery store, all of this. So you just took the bull by the horn and you implemented it. Swann was amazing. I would say more so than almost anyone else I've ever met, especially someone that was just diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. So she just kicked ass, quite frankly. And you went back to the doctor 3 months later. And what did they say?
So they did the HbA1c first and had the results on the door when she came in for the first time. And she said, "Oh my gosh, Swann, your HbA1c has dropped from 7.4% to 5.8%. Which at that point I literally screamed. Poor other people in the office, because here's this lady screaming.
But why? What do those numbers mean?
So basically 7.4% means that you are very clearly in the diabetic range. And then they've got a range that's what they call pre-diabetic. And that was really what I was shooting for in that first time period. So that was between 6 and 7. And I had bypassed that range and had dropped to even into the completely normal range at 5.8%.
So you reversed your diabetes.
I reversed it. It was in remission.
Correct me if I'm wrong, at that time you had lost 18 pounds, I believe. Okay, reversed to type 2 diabetes. So Swann was a very happy woman. I was so proud of her. But now it's been 7 months. So have you been able to maintain this over a 7-month period? And are you happy or are you sad? Are you feeling really deprived?
I'm ecstatic, to be honest. My diabetes remains in remission. I've now dropped 31 pounds. And I sometimes want to pinch myself because I think I'm so satisfied. I'm so used to Weight Watchers and that constant feeling of slight deprivation. I mean, you're happy, you've lost weight and you're excited about the health changes that you see. But there's that bit of, I fought for every piece of it I've gotten. And with this, I've had unlimited portions. I go back to that. That's clearly important to me. And, and for that reason, it seems so easy. I'm so satisfied. And I've lost 31 pounds. I've dropped from a size 22 to a size 16. And even now, a lot of my colleagues are saying, "Swann, your pants are still too big. You're going to have to get some
You need to get some smaller pants, Swann."
So, it's just all the way around. I feel good about myself. I've gotten my energy back. And I didn't realize with my kids what an important thing that was. But, my kids are young.
Yeah.
And I was just coming home, and it was just all I could do to get supper on the table for them prior to the plant-based diet, and get them into bed and homework and all that. And I would just drop into bed myself because I was exhausted. And then it took a little while for me to kind of feel that surge, but after about 3 months, I started feeling more energetic. And it's just, I want to do more stuff with them. I'm just more present with them because I'm just not fighting the fatigue like I was before. And you just don't realize that that's there until you you're in a situation where it's finally gone. And you're like,
I'm so proud of you.
So
I'm really freaking proud of you.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So it's something that I feel like I can maintain. I'm going to keep going. Well, I'm not, I don't know that I'll get to my, I guess, ideal weight at 150 pounds, but I'm well on my way there, and we'll see where it goes. And the most important thing is to keep monitoring the diabetes and make sure I keep it in remission.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And you had said when we spoke earlier that every year in the winter time something would generally happen that did not happen this winter. Remember, with your sinus infection?
Oh, thank you. Yes,
Yeah,
yes. So I typically I knew this because of my online teaching, and I would be recording lectures and see, yes, last September I was sick again, and I would always have this big cold, usually in September, I think, when the weed begins to bloom or whatever. And this year, I breezed through that. Have breezed through. I guess I considered myself. I wouldn't say sickly, but certainly had periods where I would go through it. And typically, my sinus infections would always progress into bronchitis, and so I'd be really sick. Usually have to miss probably on the order of a week from work because of that. And this past 4 months, I've had no bronchitis whatsoever. I did develop a sinus infection, I think, around Thanksgiving, but it did not progress into bronchitis. I just took my antibiotics, and I was done with it.
That's awesome. What would you say was the biggest challenge that you faced when you first started eating plant-based? And now that you're just totally rocking it, and it's been 7 months, what's the hardest thing or biggest obstacle that you face now?
So, when I first started, the biggest thing was giving up the cheese for me.
Yeah, a lot of people say that.
So, you shared with me in our little intensive weekend about how cheese is considered a low-grade addiction food.
Right.
And I never felt it more acutely than those first 2 weeks on a plant-based diet. The meat was fairly easy for me, those types of things, but it was really the cheese that I missed the most.
Even though you're Southern, you had lots of fried food, so for you to give up meat was probably something you never thought you would ever do.
Right, never. Yeah. But I was prepared for that. That was easy, but it was the cheese for me. But over time, like you said, stick with it, Swann. Stay with it. It gets better. And you were right. Yeah. It does get better. I found some alternatives to cheese.
Yeah.
And as I think too, there's a process of your taste buds changing over that kind of 2 weeks, to where the same things that I ate those first 2 weeks now taste somewhat different to me. And so I would say now my biggest challenge is probably the time that it takes to cook the recipes that I in particular want. It is possible to eat quickly on plant-based. You don't have to do all these complicated recipes or anything, but I found some of the things that I crave the most take more time for me to make.
What are some examples of this?
That would be lasagna.
Lasagna.
A hearty, tomatoey, cheesy lasagna.
Right.
So finding the time to put together a vegan version of that, and will take me about total time probably about an hour and a half. And it's just with me working full time, my husband works full time, and young kids who are in lots of extracurricular activities, I just don't have that type of time to devote to it.
And that's a perfect segment into, you also come and pick up meals from my husband and I started Trisha's Healthy Table, a healthy meals to go service that, even though we don't necessarily advertise it as only being plant-based, all the food is only plant-based.
Yes.
Because we're trying to help South Carolinians eat more fruits and vegetables, regardless if you're omnivore or whatever. So how did that help you when you first started eating plant-based? Because I know that we have made quite a few lasagnas for you. And then how has that helped you now that work is a bit busier?
Right. So, in the beginning, the stuff that you did for me, I was usually, because I was, at that point, sometimes I would get tired of the amount of cooking that it would take. Even though I was doing this at a time during the summer when I was less busy. And so had the time, but I wanted something. I kind of joked that after you had allowed me to taste test some of the recipes that Eric had made, that there was no way I was a Chef Eric and my own stuff that I was making. So, you guys, I would hit you up every once in a while. Could you please? And you guys delivered. And so that kind of provided just the cravings, I guess would be the
Yeah.
cravings that I had. Now it's really a lot about time, and for me, I purchased basically I usually purchased about one meal a week, and just having that one night off from cooking was golden for me.
Was it one individual meal, or I know you've also talked about you'd buy one of our dinners for 4 people, and then how would you use that?
So my kids are still on the fence about plant-based, and I can talk more about that. But I don't. When I'm cooking for myself, plant-based, that is the healthy meal that I provide to them. If they have to try it, and if they don't like it, they have to make their own meal at that point. And I keep around simple, quick things that they can make, like a cheese sticks, or yogurts, those types of things. And but when I would buy like the 4-person meal from Trisha's Healthy Table, then those nights would be nights that I would cook whatever they would want at that point. So
because you made the rule or said to your family, I am only going to cook one meal. Tell us about that.
So a lot of it goes back to when I first was diagnosed with diabetes. And in reading all the research, and I deal somewhat in nutritional research as well. And I knew that people who are able to maintain lifestyle changes, behavior changes long term, are those that have the support of their family to do so. In particular, their spouse, and to a lesser extent, their whole entire family. Because women who are having to cook 2 meals, one healthy meal for themselves and another meal for their family, are less likely to maintain that type of lifestyle long term. So I took it to my husband and I said, look, I need you to be all in with this. If I'm going to make significant changes here, and he knew why I was making changes, he knew with the diabetes what kind of prognosis I was looking at. And I said, I need you to do this with me. And so he ultimately decided that he would. He'd be all in, and he agreed with me and supported me with my children, and saying, I will cook 1 meal a night for you. It will be plant-based like I cook. For myself, you have to try it. And
5-bite rule for the kids?
Yes. So I had the 5. They had to have at least 5 bites, because I went through with them and explained that it can take at least 5 bites for your mind to really know whether or not you like a food. And one night I cooked a fettuccine alfredo, a cashew fettuccine alfredo, one of the very first recipes that really enlightened me about plant-based cooking.
What was it, cauliflower beef? You know?
It was a cashew base.
Okay, it was cashew.
And so I gave him his 5 bites, and literally after every bite, my child said to me, "Don't like it. Still don't like it." By the 5th time he told me that, I was ready to pinch his little head like a grape. But I was calm. I breathed deeply and said, "That's fine. Thank you for trying. You may go get what you would like to eat for dinner tonight." But my husband supported all of that. So with Trisha's Healthy Table, what I got to later somewhat was when I bought my meal from Trisha's Healthy Table, and I would then cook for them.
Right, the regular food.
The regular
kind of excited them because they had the old food back, which they really like. Which you saying that to me was the first time I had ever thought of that. Like, I know it can be whether you get food from Trisha's Healthy Table or have a friend that cooks for you, or I know your mom helps you sometimes too, which is really awesome. Again, yay for family support. But I knew that people would pick up meals for us, or again from a friend, and then you can feed the whole family, and the food just tastes good enough that people will just eat it, and it's not a big deal that it's not the real thing.
Right.
But that was the first time the light bulb went off for me that, hey, this is another way that meals can be used. Is if you have a healthy meal for yourself, it frees you up to cook a meal for your family, but you still don't have to cook 2 meals. Because I think that is a really big challenge for women, especially feeling like they have to cook 2 meals, or that's their only option. So I really appreciate you sharing that. Now I'd like to ask you how you make healthy cooking quicker in your kitchen, because people think that when they start to eat a plant-based diet, and some of it, I think it's a lifestyle change in the beginning, and it is challenging in the beginning, and you can easily get over that. But you don't have to spend an hour and a half every night in the kitchen to do it and like your food and be successful long term. Like you can spend 15 minutes, 30 minutes in the kitchen, eat a healthy, delicious, plant-based meal, and be full. So that's important for people to know that that is even possible. So what are some of the things that you do to make eating healthy quicker in the kitchen?
One of the big things that I do, you know, most of the recipes that you'll find online or whatever call for usually fresh vegetables.
Right.
And so I started taking shortcuts with those of using canned vegetables or frozen vegetables. And even to a certain degree, having to chop the vegetables, you can find a lot of those vegetables chopped. As well. So that certainly cuts down on some of your time.
And that's not a bad thing to do. People, when I teach this, some people just assume they have to eat all organic or they can't use the microwave, and use canned vegetables. It's a vegetable. The biggest thing we need to do is just get them in your mouth. So as long as you can eat them without added sugar and added oil on top, just get the canned and get the frozen, especially if it's going to help you actually eat them. So I love that.
Exactly. And then the other thing that I do is usually on the weekends when I have more time, I will cook some of my staples. So I'll make this cauliflower cheese sauce. That's my go-to kind of cheese sauce.
Which is cheese made out of cauliflower. Nutritional yeast are the main ingredients. So you're eating vegetables when you're eating cheese.
So I make a double batch of that. That will usually last me about 2 weeks. There are also some other things that one thing when I do cook as well, I usually always have leftovers. So I take that I'll freeze some of it to have for when I really need something really quick. And then the other part I will take for my lunch. So I'm not having to cook a lunch or anything. Yeah. So that's helped as well.
I know we talked earlier and you said you keep something on your refrigerator. Can you tell me about that?
Yes. So I realized, one of the things that I think is not a hard adjustment, but certainly, just an adjustment process is the cooking and putting meals together and kind of realizing what all you have in your toolbox, so to speak. So after, I guess it was quite recent, maybe a couple months ago, I realized I just I'm a list person and I like lists.
Yeah.
And so I made a list of the things that took a little bit longer, but that I really like those recipes. And then those recipes are things that were quicker, that are meals that I could throw together quickly.
Yeah.
And so put those both up on the refrigerator. So if I need a quick meal, I go down the list. Let me do that and that and that. So that seems to work for me. And then the other thing that I would say has also helped me out a lot is, there are certain packaged foods that you can get that are quicker, that you can put together fast. A jar of spaghetti sauce with some pasta is kind of been my go-to quick meal as well. You suggested some stuff, some mac and cheese, that type of stuff. So
it's vegan mac and cheese. It's a sweet potato powder type thing. Yes. It's one of the healthiest mac and cheeses. Right. I'll put a picture of the box in this blog post for you too.
And and the important thing too is that it's within my 10% goal of less than 10% of calories from fat. So that's a lot of times with the packaged foods, you get more added fat to them, even if they are plant-based and whole food kind of stuff. So you kind of have to watch that. But with those, I find that, I've got enough there that I can just throw stuff together. And even if you can't find it at your local grocery store, what I'll do once a month is make the big trek across town to Whole Foods for me. Yeah. And, stock up and get like 10 boxes of stuff or, that type. Because usually that's the stuff that we'll keep as well. Yeah. And have that on hand. And so I can manage once a month making it to the grocery store where I can make this stuff.
Great. Those were a lot of really great tips. Thank you. So how would you say that the education you received from our trainings and working together, how imperative or not important was that to your success?
It was vital. I never would have been successful without that. It was, I feel like I have a pretty good basis in nutrition from my research work that I do at the university. So I, have a good working knowledge of nutrition and how to eat healthy and low fat, so to speak. But this was a whole new world for me, even with that foundation. So it was, for me in particular, some of the things that stick out were, what are the guidelines and how to meet those guidelines. I think the fat thing was a big thing. And I never knew that about keeping it within 10% of calories from fat. everything that you eat. And as long as you do that, you can keep, your portions are unlimited.
Yeah.
And the grocery store tour for me also, and finding out what type of tofu, what are the differences in tofu, what is textured vegetable protein, TVP, and all those things, like going through and having you point things out to me was incredibly helpful.
And then we would have, at the very least, weekly communication via texting. So how important was that? And then also, what does the science, the evidence show about support systems when trying to change your diet?
So, as a part of what we did together, I needed to be accountable every week to you. And so every week I would text to you my weight, and then you would respond back. And then sometimes I would even text you with, "Oh, I really feel dissatisfied, and I don't know what's going on, or I want this." And you would, kind of, "Well, what do you really think?" So we, worked through all that. And it's funny, I guess maybe 3 or 4 months ago, I had a student who was doing a scientific research review of what the scientific evidence shows in the way of mobile apps and that type of stuff. And she came across that one of the defining factors for success and better health outcomes were those types of apps that allow two-way interaction between a health professional and the patient. And so if you and that would be the same in this situation. You were my health professional, you're my nutritionist, I was the patient. And so that kind of two-way interaction, I think, was also part of the keys to my success here, because, it kept me accountable. It kept me, kept me human, I guess, in some ways. That I wasn't just always trying to be perfect for you.
Yeah.
And
you allow yourself to be vulnerable.
Exactly.
It's not an easy thing to do.
So, that's another key feature that I think is really important to anyone who wants to really change their lifestyle and their behaviors like this.
And then you expressed to me, too, that even doing these interviews right here helps hold you accountable.
Exactly.
So you right now are helping hold Swann accountable and helping her maintain the amazing health results that she's gotten. And I can't wait to do this in 2 years and see where you are, no matter what the outcome is. But my hunch is that it's going to be really good. Yeah. Now it's time to hear from you. Swann and I want to see you answer and put your feedback in the comment section below this video. Here's what we want to know from you. What is one action item, one thing that you can start to implement in your life that you learned from this video? Can you start to list your healthy meals that are quick and some that are more involved that you love on your fridge? Or maybe you'll start to buy canned veggies and frozen vegetables so you actually make sure that you use them when you cook during the week. Also, what else did you learn from this video? As always, if you like this video, please like it so we know that you liked it and that you want us to do this again. That'd be great. Please email it and share it with your friends. Thank you so much for watching. Get educated, get support, and take control. Yes, you can get the healthy body you deserve.